Good morning again, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Web Design World. For most of us, this is the middle day of the conference. I know some of you are not attending our workshop days tomorrow, but on this side today, we're going to be talking Macromedia and Adobe products, Dreamweaver, Flash, and the like. And on the other side, we'll be talking strategy and technology, the more general sessions. And is there anyone here who was at our Boston conference just this past December? Toby, you don't have to raise your hand because I know you. No, okay. So we're good on that front. Kicking us off with some Dreamweaver tips is Angela Buralia. Correct me, please. Buralia. Always try to get names right. She is probably best known as the founder of Dreamweaver FAQ.com. She is also the author of a number of Dreamweaver-related books and also training titles from lynda.com.
Actually, Dan's the training title.
Dan is the training title. We're going to be hearing from Dan next, but I think there's some Lynda-related giveaways that are going to be taking place. Cool.
Lots of giveaways today.
Excellent. And we're very happy to have her here to talk Dreamweaver. So please say good morning to Angela Buralia.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Good morning, everyone. Just to get a little feel for who I'm speaking to today, I'd like to know how many of you are already using Dreamweaver 8? And anybody still using only MX 2004? Just a couple. Okay. And if you're using MX, a lot of this might not be applicable. Some of this is MX 2004 and Dreamweaver 8. It's mostly Dreamweaver 8. I'll begin. The slides are printed out in the conference handbook, so if you need to reference them at any time, if I go too fast, you have that for your reference. I like to do as little of the slides as I possibly can, and I like to demonstrate a lot. So if you want to know anything about me, my bio is here. If you have questions, you can email me. Feel free. So just to give you a little idea of what to expect from this presentation, it's me, it's all me. It's all about me. No, I'm just kidding. It's all about Dreamweaver. And it's workspace, cascading style sheets, tables, a little bit about dynamic application building. Show of hands. .NET users? Nobody. Okay. ASP? Anybody? Okay. Just a few of you. Cold Fusion? A few more. Okay. PHP? And I doubt there's anybody in JSP in here, right? Oh, my goodness. Wow. That's a first. Usually nobody raises their hands for that. Okay, great. So all of what I talk about when it comes to dynamic application building, I'm going to be showing in Cold Fusion. However, the steps are exactly the same no matter which server model you use. So don't be afraid of the Cold Fusion code. In fact, I'll show you how you can start using some of the features in Dreamweaver that are geared towards application building, even if you're not doing Cold Fusion, ASP, etc. We'll do just a little bit of tips for hand coding and then some miscellaneous stuff that I think is pretty cool. And if you were up late last night, try and stay awake, have some coffee. I'm going to go really fast because I like to pack in as many tips as I possibly can. So if you would like me to slow down, if I'm going really too fast, then please say so. But it's really hard to slow down and tell everybody everything that I'd like to get in today. So we have over 20 tips. Okay, just a little bit about the books. I am a co-author on Dreamweaver MX Killer Tips, MX 2004 Killer Tips, and there is not a Dreamweaver 8 Killer Tips, so everybody just say, aw. Yeah, I know. If you want to know why, I have a little introduction about why on the dwkillertips.com website. But what it came down to was there was not enough tips to really make a full new book. We already, between the two books, had 400 tips, and to come up with another couple hundred would be an extreme feat of, miracle. So moving right along, today's session, like I said, over 20 tips, and most of the tips are not in the books. So you guys are getting some really new, fresh stuff. And like I said, fast-paced, and this is for everybody, beginner to advanced. So if something seems a little bit advanced and you're kind of like, what in the heck is she talking about? Just try and put it in the back of your head for another time when you've moved along and you'll say, oh, wait, I think I remember seeing something about that back at Web Design World. What's with all these little 8 icons you're going to be seeing means that this tip is specifically for Dreamweaver 8. Do not expect it to work in any earlier version. If a slide is still relevant to MX 2004, you will not see this little 8 icon. And that little 8 icon is right in that little lower right-hand corner of the screen, and you can keep an eye out for that. So that's your clue there. I'm going to get right into it and get started. Zoom. Dreamweaver 8 introduced a new feature for zooming into your document, and this was a widely requested feature. And basically it allows you to zoom in as if you were using a graphic design program such as Fireworks or Photoshop, etc. And there's a few reasons why you might want to use Zoom. And I threw this in as a tip, even though it's like, oh yeah, new feature, blah, blah, I knew about that. I threw it in as a tip because when I first found out about this new feature, I was not even mildly impressed. I was like, Zoom, what the heck do I need Zoom for? I've got Fireworks, I've got Photoshop, I've got Windows Magnifier, I don't really need this. And then one night I was working and I discovered that I really couldn't see very well late at night after having worked all day and having left my glasses in the other room. So I used Zoom for the first time and realized, hey, this is actually quite useful. And I used it for this image map that you see on screen. I needed to get nice straight lines, so that's one good use for it. If your eyes are tired, you can zoom in. And then for pixel perfect alignment, for those of you who have to get it just right with your CSS, really good and useful for that. And just to show you where that's at, we're going to jump over to Dreamweaver. And it's just down here at the bottom of your document, and you can click on the zoom tool and zoom into your document, and it zooms in on text or images, whatever you'd like, and you'll notice that it tells you what percentage is here, just like you would expect. And we can go to fit with or fit all or back to 100%, etc. So it's very, very handy in that regard. Let's see here. We'll go back to our PowerPoint. The next new feature that I'd like to expose and give you a little bit more info than would be normally obvious, and that's just it. I like to give things to you that are new features, but there's little things about the new features that they don't really put into the marketing material, so they go undiscovered, and this is one of them. With guides, and I'm going to jump over in Dreamweaver and show you. Let me open up a new document so that we're not distracted by the content. And with guides, you can just pull them onto your page by dragging out from the ruler section, which is what you would expect. It works just like your typical graphics program. But what you may not expect is that if you hold down the control key and put your mouse over the guides, you'll see the distance between the guides. So between this guide and this guide, it's 101 pixels. So if I needed it to be moved over by 1, I can just move over my 1 pixel, and now I've got my 100 pixels, pixel perfect alignment, and I could use that guide that way. So notice it moves wherever I put my cursor. It tells me the distance between them. And this measurement right here, 577, is between here and the edge of my document window. So if I were to collapse my panels and give myself more room, then I get the exact measurement. Cool? Another new to Dreamweaver 8 feature is Save Workspace Layouts. And I wanted to show this to you because it's something that, again, I didn't find to be all that spectacular when I heard about it. I thought, oh yeah, save my workspace layout. I don't really change it much anyway. And that's because I was pretty much trained to never change my workspace layout because I couldn't save them. And if you start dragging your panels around, it slows down your workflow. So a lot of what I want to show you today are little things that you can do to help speed up your workflow. Those of you who remember Dreamweaver 4, we had all those floating panels and they were all over the place and you're constantly moving them around to try and, I see a lot of heads nodding, to try and get things right where you need them. And then MX came along and they gave us this great little multi-document interface, and it was just, wow, okay, I don't have to worry about moving my panels because they're all over here, and I can collapse them and I could get them out of my way when I don't need them, which is great. And they didn't have that on the Mac. They still had their floating panels. And Dreamweaver 8, those of you who haven't used it on the Mac yet, it has this interface now, which is great. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you can still drag your panels around with the gripper. And the gripper is this little set of dots on the side. On the Mac, there's like, I think 5 dots. There's 6 or 7, maybe 8 on PC. And once you see the black outline, you can release it, and you have your panel docked to the right or left of the document window. Well, now, if I'm doing a lot of CSS, I might want a workspace that's like this, where I keep my CSS panel open on the right and I have everything else open on the left. I can go to my window menu, workspace layout, and you'll see I saved this one called dual monitors because I didn't care for the default dual screen. I have dual monitors at home. But let's go ahead and save the current one and my favorite CSS layout. And we'll click OK. So I have this now anytime I'd like to use it. You have a question? Yes? Yes, if you alternate between dual monitors and single monitors, it will save both layouts. It will remember where your panels were on the other one. I have not been working on dual monitors consistently, so when I unplug the dual monitor, I usually just switch over to a different layout. I haven't really paid attention to whether or not the panels are kind of missing somewhere. But if they are missing somewhere and you can't find a panel, then switch to one of the default Coder Designer, and you should be fine. So that was a problem in earlier versions of Dreamweaver as well. So I can go to my Coder workspace, and that's a default workspace for Dreamweaver, and you'll notice that disappears, and everything is back to its default. But again, later on, I might be working on CSS. I can go over to my favorite CSS layout, and here it is. The one thing that you must note is that toolbars do not get saved. Their positions do not get saved. So if I had moved this over here, and I go to Coder, you'll notice that it left my toolbars where they were. It didn't snap that toolbar back to whatever the default might have been. And if I go back over to CSS layout again, see that the toolbar didn't move? So it does not remember where your toolbars were when you save your workspace layout. If you'd like it to remember that, that's something that you could write in an extension, or if you're into that, or you can request that Macromedia, now Adobe, fixes this so that you have your toolbar layout saved. Opening multiple files in the order you want. This is something that a lot of people didn't realize you can do with Dreamweaver, especially those of you who have been using Dreamweaver for a long time. I'm sure you're thinking, you can't open multiple documents from the File Open window. You know, it used to be that you can only open one document at a time. But like just about any other program in the world, you usually can hold down the Shift key and select multiple files. That's new in Dreamweaver 8. So if you haven't tried that yet, it's because you were trained to believe that Dreamweaver couldn't do that. And I will go ahead and just show you what I meant by that in the slide. What I meant by opening multiple files in the order you want is if you want them in a specific order in the document, or in your Dreamweaver interface, I should say, then you need to select them in reverse order. So if I want my index page to be first, then that needs to be the last one that I select. So results, order, and then index. And now index is first. They will open in the order they appear here. So it doesn't add it to the end, it adds it to the front. And I can open these documents, and it'll open up. Now, something that was not publicized at all is that, and I'm going to close this out of the way, is that you actually can reorder your documents once they are open. If you hold down the mouse key, click on it, you can actually drag and reorder your documents. And that's an undocumented new feature. And part of why you might not even realize you could do it is because there aren't any little gripper icons, and it's not documented anywhere. And you notice it's kind of jumpy. There are a few issues. When you have, be aware that if you have enough documents open that it requires scrolling across to see all of your documents, you might get this jumpy issue where two tabs just start doing this back and forth. And you're like, whoa, whoa, stop, cut it out. And that basically means just close your document and reopen it, and that'll stop it. So it wasn't a fully fleshed out feature, so they didn't really popularize it. Cool? Another question? Yes. Will I also control the tiling order? I'm sorry, the what order? Tile the windows. Will they order in the same order? That's a very good question. I don't generally work that way, but let's just see if it does. Well, it didn't. Doesn't look like it did. Well, it did it backwards. It looks like it did it in backwards order, so results was up here, and it may have gone this direction. But that's a good question. I'll have to play with that a little and see if it's consistent. Okay. Oh, let me go back 1 second here. Just to let you know, this is a Windows-only thing. As far as opening them in the order that you want on Mac, it's not possible to open multiple documents that way, as far as I recall. Okay? And the slides just reinforce everything that I've said, so I'm going to go right past a lot of the slides so that I can demo more. I told you about reordering open documents. If you have any suggestions on how they can make that feature better, and also the things that I mentioned about the toolbar earlier, this is the URL that you want to go to. It's macromedia.com/go/wish. And that will take you to their feature/bug report, and you can tell them, hey, can you improve this feature? I want it to save my toolbars. Or, it really would have been nice if you had a gripper up there. I've been using Dreamweaver 8 for 5 or 6 months, and I didn't know that I could move the documents till I saw Angela's presentation. Okay? Revealing folder paths on Windows. And so this is something that changed in Dreamweaver 8 as well, and that's how they describe what document is open in the program's title bar. And if you have a really long folder path, you would end up with something that looks like this picture here, and you just really, 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 really long, and then you don't ever see the file name. And you don't know what document you're looking at, especially if you have a lot of folders that are named similarly, and it can be confusing. And just the way to get past that without having to do anything fancy like finding the file within the site is to make the window just a little bit more narrow, and it'll push all of the folders that you see over here to the left so that you can reveal what that file name is. Okay? And I don't need to demo that one, I don't think. Revealing folder paths on the Macintosh, though, this is native to Mac. It's not necessarily something that is Dreamweaver specific, but I found that a lot of Mac users aren't aware that you can do this. On Mac OS X, you can control-click the file name, and that will give you the path to the file on your hard drive. So on this particular machine, the drive is named Dan Short's Tiger. Go under Users, Daniel Short, Desktop, Killer Tips, and here's my file. And choosing one of these menu entries will take you to it in Finder. So if I chose Daniel Short, it would take me there. If I chose folder path, it would take me to that in Finder. And so that's kind of handy to jump around between Finder and Dreamweaver. Similarly, on the Windows machine or also on Mac, we have 2 new entries in your Files menu, and I will show you that. If you are in your Files panel, and you right-click on a folder, you can, or control-click on the Mac. You can choose Explore, or in Mac, it's Finder. And if I choose Explore, it takes me straight to it in Windows Explorer, and I'm in my folder, and I can get to whatever files I need. Now, this is something to take note of. No pun intended there. You'll notice that there's an underscore notes folder here, and I don't have that underscore notes folder in Dreamweaver. And just be aware that this is where Dreamweaver stores information that's specific to your site or specific to your file. And inside the notes folder, there may be these files that end in .mno. And these files will say maybe your assets, your favorite colors that are in your assets panel. They control things like design time style sheets, design notes, that sort of thing. So if you've been using Dreamweaver and you have a preference that you set somewhere, and then later you delete the notes folder, your preference will disappear. So if your preferences keep disappearing on you and you haven't been able to figure out why, and you now are nodding a couple of nods, yeah, you deleted your notes folder and that's why your preferences disappeared. So leave those notes folders there. They don't hurt anything. They don't harm anything at all. They're safe. They're just little meta files, basically. Copying and pasting from the reference panel is also new. How many here have never used the reference panel ever? Okay, I see that a lot. The reference panel has been there for a while, but it was kind of hidden in earlier versions of Dreamweaver. In 8, they made it a little bit more obvious. And the windows, if you go to the window menu and we go to reference, it's Shift F1. We'll bring that up. And you'll notice that mine isn't docked right now, but by default, it is normally docked down here. And the reference panel contains references for Cold Fusion, ASP, .NET, CSS, HTML, JavaScript, you name it. They've got the O'Reilly reference for it in here, anything that you could possibly need. So it's a really handy tool to go and find snippets of code, examples of code, and in the past you weren't able to copy and paste from it. But now you can, and let's say we're looking at just an anchor here. We see that there is a description, and I can look at the language or the title, and see here it says click to select and copy, and that means this is an example that I can actually copy, bring it over to my document, and paste. And I didn't select copy. Right-click and choose copy, or control-click, or control-C. That works as well. And then paste. And that's for every single one of the reference panels. Just look for that click to select and copy. If it doesn't say it, even if there's code there's a few places where they missed it. If it doesn't say that, you won't be able to select it and copy. Wrapping tag in code view. This is something that I've been doing for ages in design view, that I've always wondered, why don't they have this in code view? And now I finally have it, and I've been really thrilled to be using it. Close this document. We'll close this one too. Let's see here. Okay. So I'm in code view. Collapse that for you. I'm in code view, and I want to wrap this tag with a div tag. In the past, I would have to go up here, type in div, then come back down here, type in div. Now, all it takes is Control-T, and the wrap tag dialog comes up. I type in div ID equals my search, and I press enter, and it's wrapped the tag around it for me. You can do that with any tag. In fact, if I wanted to make an Angela tag, it would wrap it around there as well. So if you're doing a lot of XML, this comes in really handy. Okay. Code collapse is also new in Dreamweaver 8, and it is extremely useful when you're working in really large documents, especially if you need to debug. Let's say that you've got a table that's giving you problems as far as how it renders, and you really need to look at that table, but you've got a nested table structure. You can collapse a full tag, collapse all the tags that are around it. You can collapse the selection, and you can expand all, because that's what these three buttons here say you can do, right? But it can do more than just that. It can collapse the outside tag if you press the Alt or Option key on the Mac. You can collapse the outside selection by pressing the Alt or Option key, and I'll show you this. And you would know this only if you always read the tooltips, because the tooltip says right here to press the Alt key to collapse the outside selection. So keep an eye out on your tooltips in Dreamweaver, because a lot of times they show you a little tip, and they're actually quite useful. So if we look at this document here, we have the option to collapse the full tag. So I can collapse it, and if I hover over it, I can see the contents of that tag. And I can expand it by clicking on the plus or minus. And if I wanted to collapse the outside tag, which in this case would be the body, I can hold the Alt key, or the outside tags, I'm sorry. That would be all tags and everything outside of this particular tag. Hold the Alt key option on the Mac, and notice that I only have this one to look at now, which makes it really nice if you're trying to debug. You can kind of get everything else out of your way. Play with these. They're available in the new code toolbar on the left-hand side. And if you happen to not want your toolbar showing, you have access to that in your right-click menu as well under Selection. And you'll see that it lists all of your choices here. And you can choose Expand All to expand every single collapsed instance. Cool? Great. Okay, I'm going to move on to keyboard shortcuts for snippets. One of the most requested features for MX 2004, I mean, I kept hearing this over and over again. Who here does not use snippets? Everybody uses snippets? Oh, come on. You can fess up. Confession. This is a, all right, see, I knew it. There had to be a few in here. Okay, snippets are really cool because they're great for using, for code that you reuse, code that you find yourself doing all the time, like comments for CSS or JavaScript, for wrapping your content with these comments, meta tags that you want to make sure you always place in a page. I mean, just about anything. And at the end of this presentation, there are some resources, and one of them is to the Snippets Exchange, where you'll find over 200 snippets of code that people have submitted that they find useful that they have in their snippets panel. So you might want to check that out. One thing to keep in mind is this little bug alert. Those of you who said you're still using MX 2004, be careful about your keyboard shortcuts for snippets. If you install an extension and you're not using the 7.01 updater, then you will lose your keyboard shortcuts for snippets, and you'll have to redo them. You don't lose the files or the snippets themselves. You just lose your keyboard shortcut. So if you install the updater, then you're safe. And I'm going to show you how great this is. And I have a how-to in here as well, and I'm going to just show it to you rather than go over it. They moved the snippets panel in Dreamweaver 8 to the files panel group. It used to be under the code group. I have a snippet that I created here under JavaScript called null link. And all that code is this null link. So every time I need a null link, I don't have to type that in. And if we look at it in the editor, it is a wrap tag style snippet. And before my selection, then if it's before my selection, we want the ahref JavaScript, and after my selection, we want the closing anchor tag. And that's it. Very, very simple. So let's say that I want, and we'll go in a new document here. So let's say, hello San Francisco. And I want to make San Francisco a link. Then all I have to do is insert this snippet, and there's a variety of ways you can do it. You can double click on it. You can press the insert one right here. And oh, that's a new folder, excuse me. Insert, there we go. And you can use your right-click menu to insert the snippet. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do this. But I found that I fumble, just like I just did right now. Is where's that insert button? And, you know, where's it in the right-click menu to insert a snippet? And now we have the favorite snippets or your most recent snippets in the code toolbar, which helps, but I still forget that that's there sometimes. So for things like this that I use really often, it just makes sense to make a keyboard shortcut out of it. We go to Edit Keyboard Shortcuts, and if you haven't made a duplicate set, it'll prompt you to do so. I've made a set called Angela Shortcuts, and if you look under Commands, we have Snippets. And it'll load it up, and it'll give me a tree menu just like I have here, and I find my snippet called null link, and Control-Alt-L is the keyboard shortcut that I like, because L for link. And if I click change, that adds it right here. I know that it's been added. If you don't click change and you just click OK, it won't get added, so make sure you click change. And click OK. And I'll go ahead and undo. Now all I have to do is Control-Alt-L, and it's there every single time. Cool? Couple questions? Yes? No, you have to go through the keyboard shortcut dialog. The question was, can you make it a keyboard shortcut as you type it into the code? And no, the answer is no to that. You'd have to go through the dialog. You can make it a snippet, yes. You can take code and, like, let's say I wanted San Francisco to be a snippet, and I can select it, and I believe under the selection menu, yep, selection, create new snippet. It's right below selection, create new snippet. I usually go under the snippets panel, but it's under your right-click menu as well. So if you're in CodeView and you don't have this open, I wanted to show that it is under your right-click menu, and you just give it a title and click OK. But you can also create the new snippet this way, and it'll do the same thing. It'll take your selection. And then you can have it as an insert block since I'm not wrapping my selection with the word San Francisco. Another question? Convenient way to get version 6 in snippets? If you want to take your snippets from a previous version of Dreamweaver, there is an extension on the Macromedia Exchange for exporting your snippets and then importing them. So there is an extension available to do that. That's the easiest way to do it. If we have a little bit of time at the end, I can show you that. I will be covering a little bit of this kind of thing in the next session that I present, Customizing Dreamweaver. Yes? Yes, there is. There's a resource at the end of this presentation, and I'll show that to you. Okay. Another useful snippet that a lot of Cold Fusion programmers like to have is surrounding with pound symbols, and I just wanted to throw this slide out there. I know there's not a lot of Cold Fusion developers in here, so I won't spend a lot of time on this, but it's the same principle. You can use the snippets in order to surround with a pound sign, and if you're previously a home site user or Cold Fusion Studio user, then you'll notice that the keyboard shortcuts conflict because Dreamweaver 8 now has a keyboard shortcut for the surround with pound. So you can get around that by a few things, and here are the methods that you can use to get around that. Just want to make sure that you guys knew that that's there. This one is an improvement to an existing feature. CSS display none. What that is, and I will show you. If you are using the display none property in CSS, you will have a little yellow icon in the document window. And I will go into a file that has that in place already. There it is. The bright light's shining in my eyes. It's having a hard time seeing. Everything's going blurry on me. So, pardon me. Okay, we notice that we have all of these little icons, yellow icons in the document window. These are using CSS display none. And I know this doesn't look very pretty right now because CSS isn't attached to this file. But I will show you by attaching a style sheet. And I could have done this at design time or linking it, doesn't really matter. So here's a style sheet. This is probably more typical of what you would see. So we have a menu system, and you're using display none in order to hide the menus in the design view. Now, notice I'm just double-clicking here, and all of a sudden these menus are appearing. That's something that's new to Dreamweaver 8. Before, I'm going to reset all views, and I'm going to go over this one more time for those of you who didn't catch it. Before, you would only have these little icons, and they were useless. Absolutely useless. You couldn't do anything with them. They just got in the way, and they just told you basically that there was an element there that was hidden. It's display none. But now, if you right-click on them and choose element view, you can say full or hidden, or you can reset all of the element views. And what reset all the element views does is it puts it all back to the default display none. So if I say full, it expands it. Or I can actually just double-click on each of these menu items. And this is really useful, especially for doing menus, when you're doing show and hide toggle kind of stuff, because now I can see in design view what those menu items look like. And before, the old way of doing it was I'll set up a design time style sheet and leave it open all the time, which isn't always practical. Or those who didn't know about design time style sheets, you would add it to your real style sheet to say display block, and then you'd accidentally leave it upload, and all of your menus would always be open, and you'd realize that 2 days later that you forgot to set it back. So this gets around those kinds of issues that were in previous versions of Dreamweaver. Is anybody unclear on that? It's really cool. Everybody good? Okay. If you're thinking, I've never seen one of those yellow icons before, I don't know why I don't have them, but I just can't find them anywhere, under Edit and Preferences, it could be that in Invisible Elements, you don't have this box checked for whatever reason. It might have been imported from a previous version of Dreamweaver if you've upgraded. So just make sure that that's checked or you won't have it. Okay. Yes? Yes, design time style sheets. Okay, I could show that to you real quick. We have time for that, so we're running on schedule. Design time style sheets, and what I'll do is I'll remove this one first, and I'll show you what a design time style sheet does. Dreamweaver's thinking. Not sure why it's not letting me remove it from there, but I will remove it manually. Okay. So notice I have no CSS attached to this document. A design time style sheet is a method that Dreamweaver uses, and it's found in either the right-click menu in here. You can right-click, control-click on the Mac and choose design time, or you can go up to the options menu and choose design time. And what this does is it allows you to show or hide your CSS during design time without changing your code. So nothing is added to my code. And I will add my design time CSS. Actually, it's in the wrong file. Admin, there we go. And all I did was browse to a file that I have on my local machine. I click OK. And it's showing only at design time. So when I click OK, I have all of my CSS here, but I don't have that link anywhere in my code. It's all gone. There's nothing there. And I still have all my CSS. And it's like, what? How did that happen? Well, remember when I showed you, let's see, go into the same folder here. I right-click and choose Explore. There should be, and there isn't yet, because Dreamweaver probably does it a little bit later. I think it's shut down. There should be a notes folder in here that says that, let me go up. It's in here, wrong folder. There we go. CW nav cfm.mno. And if I right-click and open this with Notepad, you'll see that it says there's a CSS include, and scroll this way here. Lost my scroll bar, there we go. If I scroll that way, you'll see that it shows the path here. So that's what those MNO files are. That holds those little preferences like design time style sheets. So don't delete this, because once this gets deleted, you'll lose that connection. Okay? And if you're on a shared site, and you're sharing this working with other people, the design notes, if you allow your site definition, it'll ask if you want to share your design notes, allow it. So that way the next person who opens up this same file, they'll have that same design note on their file system that'll get downloaded too. So the MNO files are uploaded to the server automatically. You don't have to do anything at all. Dreamweaver will just upload that. Next person will download it, and they'll open up cwinc.nav.cfm, and the CSS is there for them, and they did nothing. So it's really great when you're sharing files. Okay. CSS system colors. And this is something that's been around for a while, but you don't see it used very often, and I'd like to start seeing it used more often, so I'm spreading the word. It's my evil plan. How many of you here are developing sites with accessibility in mind for government and such? Quite a few of you. This is one really good, easy way to make sure that you're choosing colors that work for your target audience. CSS has access to your own computer system colors. Not you, the designer, you, the end user, who is looking at the screen. So if you use any of these property names instead of a hexadecimal color, it would use the system colors that are already set by that user. So you can come up with interfaces that basically mimic the entire Windows or Macintosh interface. So if you wanted a menu to look like a Windows menu, you choose the appropriate corresponding CSS system color. And when you hover, if you define the hover for your links, you can have it hover with that blue color or whatever your default is. And it would just look and feel as if they were using a desktop application, depending on how you use your CSS colors. Well, Dreamweaver 8 actually renders system colors now, which is new. It didn't render them in previous versions, so if you're using it in the previous version where you're sharing your files with somebody who's on an earlier version, they won't see the system colors, so keep that in mind. There is no interface built for this in Dreamweaver yet. So again, feature requests. Tell them, this is cool, I really want this in there so I don't have to remember any of this. Keep in mind that you must hand code this or create snippets for them or go online real quick and check the reference. They are case sensitive, so that's very important. If you did active border in all lowercase, for example, you won't see the active border color because browsers only recognize it if it's properly cased. And this works in most modern browsers, anything I think 5.0 and up on both Windows and Macintosh. And I'll just show you the file in Dreamweaver, what that looks like. Close this. So here I have my system colors, and I'm just going to go into design view for this file and close a couple of my toolbars here to give it more height for you. And if I go into my operating system here and I change my appearance to, let's see, from silver to the default blue, which I like to call Fisher-Price. So we've changed to Fisher-Price blue. Notice that this now changed to blue as well. Dreamweaver is recognizing that this is the color that I set to match a title bar. And if we go into the code and we look at this, we have the property view active border is the class that I have set up here. And all I did was I chose to name all of my classes for this particular document, and this is an easy way of doing it, is if you're using this often, I prefixed this active border with the word view. So you can come up with your own prefix like CSS active border or whatever. And I just made a custom class so that I can apply that wherever I want. So you'll notice in this document I have view inactive caption text, inactive border, view caption text. All of them are named exactly after this, so that I don't have to worry about casing or remembering any of that. And a little trick for you is if I wanted to go to, notice the document jumping around, if I wanted to go to a specific one, we can just jump around using the panel here. And you'll notice it tells me what the colors are and gives me the preview here. So I don't have to actually go in and figure out where did I apply this class. So the CSS Styles panel is really helpful for that. Cool? So if you develop anything that's really exciting, that's neat with system colors, I'd like to show some examples of this, and I haven't had the time to really flesh anything out for my own purposes, but if you happen to have a great example, please email it to me and grant me permission to show everybody, and I'll show off your work and say, look, this person did something really cool with this tip, and this is what you can do. I'd really like to see more people using that because it's highly accessible. Okay. We've shown the example, and in the slides I have a shortened link here that will take you to this reference online, and it is the W3's reference which lists all of the CSS system color properties. It looks like this, and it tells you what they are, what they apply to. So app workspace would be the background color of a multiple document interface, so you don't have to guess at what things are and where they're used. So that's there for you if you need it. And another new feature, and this is something that I really, really love, is being able to use absolute URLs in CSS. And you may have noticed that if you use an absolute URL in an image, Dreamweaver actually pulls that image off the web and shows it in design view now, which is really cool. They do that with CSS as well. It will pull the file from the internet and make a local cache copy of it. And it only uses that cache copy. So keep in mind that if the file changes on the server and you've already pulled it, it's in your system cache, you're not going to see those changes. It's a first load kind of thing only. So we can show you. This is an example where I wrote an article all about this, and there's a reference to it in the slides. I was writing an article for this purpose for Macromedia for their conference Max, and I didn't want to download all of their CSS and put it on my machine because once I'm done with this article, I don't need those files anymore. And I have a design time style sheet here. Well, actually, it's a linked style sheet. I took it out of design time because it was being a little bit finicky. But if I look at this file and open it, you'll see that I have add import, macromedia.com CSS fonts, and I have about 10 files here. That's how many CSS files that they use to run their homepage. And I did it this way so that I could write the article and know exactly what it was going to look like without having all these files on my local machine, and then come to find out 2 days from now when I'm working on the article again, things are different and I've got the wrong files locally. They're always changing things on the server. I just need to reopen my file and it's got all of the changes in it. So that's another good use for it. Another quick tip and trick here for you is the CSS Styles panel, and how you look at the panel determines what you see here. So if you're looking at all or current, and I will show you this. If I'm in current mode, you'll see that things change. So this is all, and it tells me all of my CSS for the entire document. If I'm in the current mode, then I can see what I've currently got selected and all of the properties that are for it. And if I look at over here in this information section, it says that the color is defined in Rule A visited in theme CSS. I can right-click and say Go to Code. Now, this is going to be really funny when I do this. No error occurred. Okay, thank you for telling me. The reason why it did that is because this is a CSS file that is linked absolutely. And it says, well, you're trying to view something that's actually online and go to the code and it's online. And I've got a cache version here that I won't let you edit anyway. So no error occurred, really. Now, if I had a document that was linked locally and it was just a local, on my local machine, then it would open it and jump straight to the code for that declaration. So that's really handy because you can do that with the all mode as well if I wanted to. And let me go into a better document for that. If I wanted to, well, that's not the right one for it. If I wanted to go just straight to this code, I can right-click and choose Go to Code, and it'll open that document up. And notice I'm right in that declaration. Same thing goes for if it was describing in the description area, I can go to Code. And the nice thing is you don't actually have to go to code. If you hold your cursor over there long enough, it'll tell you where it's defined, the file that's defined in, and then those of you who are majorly into CSS, it'll tell you the specificity. And that's something that, you know, I won't get into here now, but if you're really into CSS, you know what this is, and you're going, ooh, eyes are widening. Okay. Oh, let's go back there. I call this one File Switcheroo, and this is because I can switch from a new file, collapse this so you can see really well, a new file, and this is an untitled CFM file. But if I change that file extension to CSS and I press enter and I open it again, look, I start with a CSS document. How cool is that? So no more opening the file at CFM, save as, or changing the file extension here, and then you still have a Cold Fusion code to remove or whatever. It's right what you want when you want it. Finding and replacing specific tags. Dreamweaver has find and replace that lets you search for any tag, whether you're using XML, Cold Fusion, HTML, XHTML, whatever. But you can find a specific tag and do all sorts of really cool filters on it that will allow you to look for things with specific attributes or a tag that's missing an attribute, and then replace the tag based on whether or not it is inside another tag. So only replace, you know, a div tag if it's inside a table. You know, if it's outside of a table, then don't do anything to it. You can get really detailed. And you can use this to strip tags. Find and replace can be used to strip tags, remove tags and their contents. You can change it to a different tag. So if you have a div that you want to change a span, you can do that. You can remove attributes, add attributes, or you can add code before and after a tag. So one really good use for this is if you're starting to use CSS on a site and you want to link every file needs a link to the CSS file, you can say search all documents that have a head tag not containing a link, and then add that link. I see a lot of nods going, oh, that's how you do it. I opened every single file. Yeah, find and replace. Okay, and I have an example for Cold Fusion in here. So if anybody has any questions about that example specifically, let me know. But that was one of the first examples that came to mind. I realized that CSS is probably a more common example there. And I'm going to show you the next one. And this is called replacing in results. And if you learn nothing else today, this is the one that's going to be the one that makes you go, oh, wow, okay, this was worth it. This is like my favorite tip of all time. Okay. How many of you have been using Dreamweaver since Dreamweaver 4? Dreamweaver 3? Okay, so I've got some long-time Dreamweaver users in here. After I do this tip, I want you to honestly tell me if you knew this was there or not, and let's see how fewer hands there are, because it always impresses me that people didn't realize how long this has been. And this has been there since Dreamweaver 3, if not 4. A lot of times searches will return more results than you want, and you want to do your replace in only some of those results, not every single file. You get 100 results, but you only need to change it in 10. That's what replacing in results is about. And how you do this is, number one, always make a backup before you start, because if Dreamweaver crashes in the middle of your find and replace, it's not fun. I've been there, done that, and if you're working on a really large site, you have a larger chance of that happening. The next thing is to perform the search by doing a find all. Then you want to bring back your find and replace dialog by clicking the little green arrow in the results panel. And then when you have your list of results, back there, in the list of results, you would control click individual non-contiguous files or shift click in order to get the first file and then click on the second file and it gets everything in between. And then you will choose replace. And I said replace. I did not say replace all. So if you choose to replace all, it's your own fault. Don't come crying to me. Okay. Because what it's going to happen is if you choose replace all, it will replace in every single document, not just the ones you have selected. So the files that are modified will get marked with a little green dot next to the results. Okay. And I will show this to you. So let's say I'm going to do a find and replace in selected files in site. And I want to say Cartweaver. And I know that this appears in there a ton of times. And I'm going to replace this with Cartweaver. And I just want to add the trademark symbol, for example. Let's do a find all. And we'll see that, and I'll bring this up here so you can see most of it. We have 231 items found in 93 documents. But I know that I only want to do that in, let's say, this file and this file and maybe this one over here. And then I click the green arrow and oopsie, what happened? I just lost my selection. Because why? Because I didn't follow directions. I said to click the green arrow, then make your selection. So we go and we make a few random selections here, and these are the ones that I want to replace, and I choose this one? Replace or replace all? Replace, okay. And for whatever reason, Dreamweaver wasn't able to perform the search, and it lets me know that. But had it replaced the search, it would say a little green dot right here. And that's how I know that things got changed. Let's do this again, just to make sure that we can do find all. Okay, bring that back. And that's why it's not doing that, is I have this document selected. So let's try that again. Dreamweaver can get particular if you have a selection when you're trying to do a find and replace. It thinks you're really trying to replace on your selection instead of what you type in there. It's called a bug. Shh. Okay.
So if it's selected, it constrains the search.
It tries to. Yeah, it tries to do that. It'll still find everything, but then when I bring this dialog back, even though it's showing me this, it's thinking that it's looking for my selection. It's kind of weird. So we'll do a find all again. And this time, nope, it does not like this document. So long as every time I bring up the dialog, it doesn't have my parameters, that's your clue that it's not going to work. It needs to come back with your parameters in the dialog. Let's try that one more time. And this time I'm going to do a folder, just instead of the selected files in site, and see if that helps any. It might. Might still do it since it came up blank. We'll give it a shot. There, it did it this time. Thank you, Dreamweaver. So you can see that I have these 3 selections here have been replaced with the trademark symbol with the word Cartweaver, and we're good. Cool? Now, had a disaster happened, it would have been my own fault because I didn't do what? I didn't back up. But that's because I knew I didn't need to. I had other backups somewhere else. So don't always do as I do, just do as I say, as they say. Okay, and let's see here. I have a couple more minutes left, so I can show you a couple more tips. Or I can answer questions. But these 4 tips here are shown in their entirety in the slides. And this one is probably the only one that I would need to show that might not make sense from the screenshot. So I will do that one real quick, and then we'll go ahead and answer some questions. We'll do some giveaways. And the resources are in the slides as well. But basically, all this tip here is creating quick links is you make a selection in design view, you hold down the shift key, and you click and drag until you see that arrow. And it's the same arrow that you would get if you had the property inspector and you used the point to file system here. It's the same thing, except now I don't have to have this open anymore. I hardly ever use a property inspector anymore because I have what I need available in panels or in keyboard shortcuts. Cool? Makes sense? The shift key. Yes. Yeah, and that's listed here in the slides, so you're good to go there. Okay, and let me just go past that. The resources that I have here are the Macromedia support forums. Everybody always asks me, how did you learn Dreamweaver? What did you do? Did you take a class? You know, how did I learn Dreamweaver? I started here, right there, in the forums, asking questions, answering questions, and learning from everyone else. So that's a great resource. And if you ever get stuck on something Dreamweaver, there's people like myself. Occasionally, you'll find other Dreamweaver authors in there. We have the Team Macromedia program. I'm not sure what they're calling it, but once the name change happens, we'll probably be called Team Adobe or something. I'm not sure yet. But you'll find a group of people that are community volunteers and a lot of user group members that go to the forums and answer questions. And these are the helpful links that I was telling you about. You know, keep an eye out for the emerging issues. If you have any problems with Dreamweaver 8, check this page first because it might tell you how to fix it. There is an updater, so if you have not got the Dreamweaver updater yet, it was released about a week ago, get that because it improves a lot of the speed issues, especially on the Mac. And there's the Exchange. This is the extension resource list that I have at DW Facts. You can find a lot of extensions for Dreamweaver. And then this is the Snippets Exchange I was telling you about. And if you can't remember this URL, I'm sure you can remember this one. Yes, and yeah, it's a funny story. One day I was typing this out and accidentally capitalized that S instead of the E, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I bought a domain that has a double meaning. So if you know any doctors who want to buy this domain from me, I'm open to bids. And then those of you who are using HomeSite or ColdFusion Studio, you can convert those kinds of snippets to Dreamweaver's format with this extension as well. The bonus slides, this is the bonus slide for what's new in Dreamweaver. If you haven't been using it yet, you're using MX 2004, take a look at these. These are here mainly for reference. There's no point in going over them at length. But I have everything that's new in Dreamweaver here for you if you're wondering, or just about everything. So there you have it. If you have any questions at all, you can email me, Angela@dwkillertips.com. I'm really good about responding to emails. But please make your subject lines explicit, because if it says hi, I won't ever open it. It goes right into the spam folder. Okay? Giveaways. How should we do this? I know. Okay. Does anybody have any questions while I'm pulling this together? Yes? Another example of when I would use design time style sheets is if you're doing programming, ASP, ColdFusion, or whatever, and you have your CSS is actually coming from your database, you can create a local CSS file and use that instead because you don't want it linked up to your document. Anytime you don't want your CSS to be shown in the code, like if you're using include files, you don't want to keep having links in every single include file because that's incorrect. It would mess up your code online. So that's another example. Okay, I'm saving the ColdFusion ones for Dan's session. So if you want these ColdFusion books that weigh 5 pounds, you got to go to Dan's session. Killer tips. I have 3 of these here. That's a really good way to give this away. Oh, yeah. What button are you supposed to click in the find and replace? Okay, you guys all got that too quick. Most people have to think. Yes. You guys are on the ball. This is not like our usual audience here. How should we do this? Okay, who traveled the farthest? Let's figure this out. Anybody come from London? Okay, he gets out because he traveled the farthest. Let's give him that one. London. Okay, let's see here. Oh, that would take a while. That would take too long. Let's see here. Who's been using Dreamweaver since Dreamweaver 2? No lies. Come on, be honest. Dreamweaver 1? It narrows down. Okay, so we got a Dreamweaver 1 user here. We got another one. Do we have another Killer Tips? We'll let them choose between yours and Killer Tips. We got 3 people here that have been using Dreamweaver forever. Because it amazes me that you guys have been using Dreamweaver since Dreamweaver 1 and you still came to my session. You should know everything about Dreamweaver because you've been using it longer than I have. I've been using Dreamweaver since version 3. We have a few more things to give away here. I have another session coming up after Dan. Dan's session is on Cold Fusion. Mine is on customizing Dreamweaver, so we're going to get into a lot of fun stuff there. We'll be doing more giveaways at his session and mine, so I hope to see you. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to approach me during the conference. Thank you very much.